In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Alice's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. I invite you to join with me now in the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Eshet Chayil mi Yimsa, what a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband Mori put his confidence in her and lacked no good thing. She was good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. Alice opened her hand to the needy, and she extended it to the poor. She was clothed with strength and splendor. She looked to the future cheerfully. She opened her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue was guided by kindness. She oversaw the activities of her household and never ate the bread of idleness. Her husband, Maury, praised her. Many women have done superbly, but you, Alice, surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. One of our rabbinic texts is filled with valuable dictums and aphorisms. It's called Pirkei Avot. And this one struck me as fitting as any, and as we remember Alice. It is not your responsibility to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. For Alice Sayer, the work was tending to her family, being an incredible, strong family matriarch who served as an inspiration for 96 years. Alice's independence dictated the nature of her decisions all the way to her final breaths. She seemed to accomplish so much in her life, especially serving as a volunteer and supporter of Jewish causes. She was an independent soul, strong and clear in her ideas, who followed her own path. Born to Dr. Isaac and Bessie Rubin in Cleveland, Alice graduated from Cleveland Heights High School and went on to earn an undergraduate degree in business administration from the Ohio State University. Alice met her future husband, Maury, just after graduating from OSU. As his employee. Cantor Sager shared the following in her eulogy for Maury 10 years ago. Maury loved to tell the story. He had hired a new secretary whom he drove home the very first day she started working with him, and every day after that. One day his accountant said to him, "Maury, there's a really cute girl working for you. Why don't you ask her out?" The rest was, as they say, history. Cantor Sager went on to say, Alice was smart. She was beautiful. She was musical. She was well-bred and well-educated. Maury was smitten, and so was she. She said, "I always thought he was cute. I'd marry him again in a minute." They went on their first date, and on not so long thereafter, on December 31st, 1946, they were married by Rabbi Barnett Brickner of Euclid Avenue Temple. Maury always quipped that getting married was a practical matter, saying that he needed the tax deduction. For a far too brief 63 years, they walked hand in hand as they welcomed the triumphs and faced the tragedies, shared the highs and lows, the challenges and excitement, the joy of giving, doing, and growing together. Maury embraced Alice's family, her father, Dr. Isaac Rubin, who was ordained as a rabbi in Lithuania, and her mother, Bessie, who was also a college graduate and taught English at the Hebrew Academy. And when Isaac passed away, Bessie came to live with Alice and Maury. She was with them for 31 years, as you remember, Don, and helped to raise their two children, Don and Eileen. Maury and Alice were exceedingly proud of your achievements, Don, academically and in all phases of life, and they were, of course, devastated by Eileen's tragic death. It was in the aftermath of their grievous loss that Alice and Maury made the conscious decision that this was not going to destroy them, and as an antidote to their despair, they threw themselves even more into their volunteer work on behalf of others, and they established the Eileen Sayre Memorial Fund at Fairmount Temple, which offered religious school students scholarships for summer camp. They traveled to Israel, got involved in Israel bonds, met dignitaries like Golda Meir and Moshe Dayan. Cantor Sager went on to say, Alice became involved in the Fairmount Temple Sisterhood, the Montefiore Auxiliary, of which she was proudly accepted the presidency. She then became a member of the Montefiore board and an eventual life trustee. Maury and Alice were both joyful when they were married. They were both joyful, Don and Nancy, when you were married 15 years ago. In addition to her incredible and abundant volunteer work, Montefiore was a special place for her. She loved the people who worked there and who resided there. And in 2013, she was the proud recipient of the Harley I. Gross Award for volunteerism. Alice enjoyed expressing herself artistically by doing enameling and flower arranging. When she was at Stone Gardens, she enjoyed their wine and painting programs, but proudly did not always follow the instructions in painting. She was an avid reader, a big animal lover. There were always pets in the home. And she loved the old movie classics and more recent romantic comedies like the ones with Tom Hanks. She liked to cook. Don loved her lamb chops, her stew, her jello. She enjoyed a robust social life with many friends from the temple and beyond. Alice was also kind and loving to Don's friends, and they really loved her. You always know it's somebody special when your friends as a kid really likes your parent more than you do. She was drawn to lively people with upbeat personalities. Mostly, she was so very grateful to have Don and Nancy in her life, particularly after Maury's passing. She would tell Don, "You're my rock." Nancy shared with me, Alice had great executive skills, a skill Don emulates, such as advanced planning and organization. Last weekend, she wanted to send Don his birthday card, which is coming up this week. Although she could barely write, she was very determined, and the card was mailed on Monday. You could say that was her last act. It came in the mail the day she passed away. Nancy continued, when Alice greeted me with wide open arms on Erev Rosh Hashanah back in the 20th century, way back then. But I think that was the first time she had met you. Nancy considers it a metaphor for their relationship, which was a close one, and there was so much love shared. Nancy went on to say that, I'm grateful that both Maury and Alice were so kind and loving to me. Cantor Sager also wanted to share some remarks today on this occasion. Unfortunately, she is away. Fortunately for her, she's with her grandchildren, but she, I know, would love to be here as well. She sent this message from Minneapolis. Alice loved music and was intrigued by the arrival of a cantor to her congregation way back when. We're talking 1980. And a woman cantor, no less. Her curiosity soon turned to approval and even excitement as she and Maury were regular attendees at our worship services and wonderfully enthusiastic supporters of our Jewish Music Month offerings and special music programs. I always loved seeing them and chatting with them on so many occasions and a myriad of events and programs. Cantor Sager went on to say, Alice always inquired after my welfare and never failed to ask, how are the children? With Alice, such questions were never pro forma. She wanted to know the answers. That was her way. She was unfailingly concerned about and interested in others. Nevertheless, she may have been just a bit partial to a college classmate of her son's. Long before I ever dreamed of becoming a cantor, Cantor Sager wrote, or finding my life's work in Cleveland, Don Sayer and I crossed paths as undergraduates at Brown University. I think that means that I have known at least one member of the Sayer family for over 50 years, and I'm still counting. I believe it was one of the happiest days in Alice's life and was most deeply gratifying for me on the day that Don married Nancy Wurtzel, and I had the privilege of officiating under the chuppah at their beautiful ceremony in our Fairmount Temple library. I will never forget that day and the sheer joy evident in Alice and Maury's beaming faces. Alice was probably constitutionally incapable of projecting anything other than a positive, upbeat, and very lovely demeanor. Even when she was ailing and could barely get out of bed, she would not dwell on her own difficulties. She would only want to know how her visitor was doing. She was an indefatigable volunteer at the Jewish Community Federation, at our congregation, with numerous women's groups, at the Montefiore home, at Stone Gardens, where she and Al Gray initially worked as a leadership team. When Al stepped back, Alice became a most dynamic and effective representative of Stone Gardens in her own right. She was a natural leader by virtue of her energy, her hard work, her dedication, her belief in the mission of the organization, her clear focus and concentration, her example in pursuing her goals. She was strong-minded, strong-willed. She would not give up and would not give in. Even after 96 years of life, it was her body, never her spirit, that could endure no longer. It is hard to imagine our world without Alice Sayer. Her beauty, both inside and out, uplifted us. Her determination and resilience strengthened us. Her love of music and artistry enriched us. Her generosity of time and resources ennobled us. Her love of humanity and of this life blessed us. It is now our task, our responsibility, with our lives and with our labors, to bless her memory and the gift of her life that graced our world with her love, her goodness, her faith, her strength, and her outstanding example. Zichrona livracha. May Alice's memory forever be a blessing. And let us say, Amen. I share with you this poem that we read sometimes during Sabbath services. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I now invite you, Don and Nancy, to stand at your seats for the chanting of El Maleh Rachamim, the memorial prayer. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המסי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים מותרים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים, את נשמת רות בת יצחק ובסי שלחה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותרור בתרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני ונחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Alice Sayer, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Now we turn to the mourner's Kaddish. You should have a card with you, Alice, Nancy, and Dawn. Yes. And we're going to invite you. It is the mitzvah, it is the obligation, Dawn, for you to read the Kaddish. I will read it along with you. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayei chon uvyom echon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'galal v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha. Brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved, and we say together, Amen. Now we turn to the filling of the earth. For those not initiated with this custom, this Jewish rite that has existed thousands of years, we consider honoring our deceased one of the most holy of commandments, of mitzvot, particularly because when we take care of our deceased, our loved ones who cannot take care of themselves, we do it without expecting anything in recompense, expecting any thank yous, any return favor. We do this out of the generosity and gratitude of our hearts. And because in Judaism we bury our dead as quickly as we can, it is our task to not leave them exposed longer than they need to be. So we begin the process of putting soil into the graveside, starting this process that the good folks here at the cemetery will ably complete. So we start this process now. There is a shovel there. Nancy and Don, you can begin, and then everybody here is welcome to partake of this mitzvah as well.
Anyone else wishes?
As we turn to the conclusion of our service today, it's important to mention that, of course, Alice is now buried next to her beloved Maury, and that in Judaism we believe that when we die, that we separate from our bodies. Now, what we're burying today is not Alice. It is the body in which she lived for so many years. Not enough, but so many. But her soul lives forever. So even though we can come here and visit her whenever we'd like, we can also leave and carry her with us. So may her memory be an enduring blessing for us all. And we say, Amen. Thank you.
This concludes our service.